All right. Gosh, we'll see how this works. About to get started here. Following my last stream, which was last Thursday, I had to switch my streaming schedule to Tuesdays, just because there were conflicts with different things. So for now, Tuesdays, not Thursdays. Same time though. Yeah, so the microphone I'd been using for 6 years for these streams, for all sorts of different things, right? It basically just like fritzed out and died. So the microphone I'm using right now is one that I've actually had for about 22 years. It's older, but I think it still works. So part of what we're going to do today, and part of why I'm doing this, is to make sure that my microphone works, that it's all set up correctly for this sort of stuff. But we are going to jump into Adobe Animate today, but we're probably not going to animate anything. I'm going to jump into Animate. It's going to be a quick stream. I'm going to just create a logo in Animate. So why would I do that? Why would I not animate anything? Drawing inside of Animate is unique. It's it's similar to Illustrator in some ways, the ways that you can draw, but in other ways it's quite different, right? And those differences, it's almost as if it's not as structured and strict as Illustrator is, right? Sure, things aren't too crazy here. So yeah, let me know in the chat if you draw in Animate, if you use Animate as a drawing tool, how things go. All right, so what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna create a new file inside Animate. Here's our new document window. Pops up so fast, of course, because Animate is now, it runs natively on Apple Silicon. So this is an M1 machine that I'm running this on, and much faster, much snappier to work with. Let's just do full HD and hit create. There we go. So I've got my screen here. That is very bright. Goodness. There we are. So I got my screen, and what we're going to do is just do a little logo work, a little drawing. So I've been doing a lot around how do I frame this? I've been doing a lot of like Figma work for LinkedIn Learning the past year or so, ever since Adobe announced their intention to acquire Figma, and putting XD into maintenance mode and stuff like that. I've been able to get a hold of Figma and do a lot of stuff with it for publishers, which has been great. But one of those things, what am I trying to say? Some of the assets that I've been using for some of these courses have been assets that are owned by LinkedIn Learning, right? So they have these pools of assets that instructors can use. So I am going to create an alternate version of basically this olive oil company for this particular design here. Oh, hello, Sahil and Shinu. Hope I'm saying your names correctly. If not, apologies. So, why animate for logo designing? So we talked. You might have just joined we mentioned at the beginning here that Animate has a very different way. It's a similar way of designing, right? A lot of the tools are similar to something like Illustrator, but there's something a bit more malleable to working in Animate, a bit simpler when it comes to drawing. So we're gonna see kind of like how that's going to work here. And like I mentioned too earlier, we're not even gonna animate anything inside of Animate today. We're just using it as a drawing tool. So if we look over in the toolbar here, we've got our kind of selection and transform tools. We've also got our brushes. So Animate does include a number of different brushes: classic brush, vector brush, or art brush. And then we got the new one, which is called, can't remember, fluid brush, right? The nice thing about the fluid brush tool, for those who don't know, is that the fluid brush tool is actually based on Adobe Fresco brushes. So you've got sort of this Fresco Animate interaction going on here. So yeah, a lot of things that people don't know about Animate because Adobe doesn't talk up Animate very much. They're really big on Firefly right now, really big on Express. But when it comes to good old Animate, it's not at the top of their priority list, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this logo out of some basic shapes that we're going to then modify. So as mentioned, we're doing olive oil. So I'm going to choose my olive tool here. There's a couple of components that we might want to use for this logo. One would of course be the image of an olive. Another thing would be, like a, what do you call it? The vessel, right, that holds the olive oil. So we can kind of draw both of those things here, just using simple shapes, right? So if I go ahead and I use my oval tool, I can drag out something that looks like an olive, something like that. And if I double click to select it, I can of course make adjustments to the fill. And maybe what I'll do actually, instead of doing that, I'll go into my color panel and let's create a radial gradient. And we'll get a nice sort of olive color to this. That's a bit dark. I want something a little more to the yellow-orange side of things. There we are. Let's put a little more color to our green. And actually, let's switch these over, right? So super easy making gradients inside of Animate. And you could even add more little stops to your gradient, of course. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and add this to my swatches so I can reuse it. And now that I've added it to my swatches, it'll show up right here in my swatches and I can apply it to just about anything. So there is my little olive. Now what I can do with this, of course, I've got my free transform tool, but within there, I've also got my gradient transform tool, which is what I'm going to use. With the gradient transform tool, we can adjust all sorts of different parts of this gradient. Just to make it look, there we go. Somewhat rounded, right? All right, so if I switch back to my free transform tool, I want to put this olive at an angle here. And right, so olives usually have a pit to them. And again, I don't like olives necessarily. I use olive oil for cooking, right? But you know, I don't eat olives. But I know that they come pitted often, and they have a pit. But I'm not quite sure. I probably should look up a reference image to see what it looks like. But we can just put a little brown pit at the top there. And to do that, we're going to use the same tool. Now you got to be very careful inside of Animate, because right now this is a shape. If I click on it and I look, shape, very simple shape. And what you can do inside of Animate, which this trips people up all the time, if we go ahead and try to like create a nice brown pit here, right? What happens is it actually, it eats out the shape. It punches a hole in the shape, right? So this is one of the things that is very unique about Animate. If you don't want that to happen, which in this case I don't, what we can use is what's called object drawing mode. So if I choose to create an object on my shape, this is now a drawing object. We can see that expressed right here in our object properties. And now if I go ahead and choose my oval tool, I can toggle object drawing mode on for this. And then as let's see, maybe about that big. So now this is a drawing object as well. I created it as a drawing object. Then I can modify the transform properties of that object, and it's not going to devour the rest of my olive here, right? That's a nice looking little olive. Very cute. So another thing we can do, if we want more than one olive, right? If I select both of these objects, I can always create a symbol out of this. So right, Illustrator has symbols. You can use them in sort of the same way inside of Animate. So if I choose, in my object properties, a quick action right here, convert to symbol. So what kind of symbol do I want? Movie clip symbol, that's fine. That'll work. I'm gonna call this olive. Let me just check up on stuff here. Freaking me out. Sometimes I hear voices. Yes. So now I've got a symbol and they're together. It's kind of like a group, but I also have in my library additional olives, right? So if I drag another one out, I'm able to change the size through my transform panel here. God, olives are weird, aren't they? Flip it around. Right? So I've got my additional olives. Check up on the chat here. Hello, everyone. So let's go ahead and make the little vessel that olive oil can be poured from, right? So for that, I'm gonna choose my rectangle tool. And what I'm gonna do, oh gosh, what should I use? It's gonna be see-through, right? So maybe I would want a stroke on this. So I'm gonna add in a stroke. Maybe kind of like orangey. I mean, we can change all this stuff afterwards, of course. And for my fill, I'm thinking like green glass. And for the fill, we're gonna take down the opacity quite a bit. And again, we don't have to get it right before we draw. It's gonna be fine doing it otherwise. For my stroke style, let's make it a solid stroke. And we can, of course, change our width profile. So those who are used to Illustrator, you know, same kind of deal. We've got the ability to have our cap options here. We've got our joints and how they come together. So what I'm going to do is drag out the top of our vessel and then the bottom of our vessel. So very simple shapes. Now, because we've gone through here and we've established, we've created these objects as drawing objects, right? These are not merging, which in this case, we want them to merge. I actually want these guys to merge together. So what we can do, of course, is select them both. And how do we break them apart? We use break apart. So you can do modify, break apart right here, or you can see Command or Control B. That's gonna break them apart into just regular shapes. And then I can select portions of that. So I can select this particular stroke here and delete it. And now we have this one single shape. Let's go ahead and up my stroke size a little bit. The walls of my vessel. There we go. Question, are you using a mouse or tracking pad? I'm using a, what does Apple call it? Like the magic tracking pad or whatever it is. It's just it's like the same thing you have on a MacBook, trackpad. Yes. I have an iPad over here that I use for other things and, an Apple Pencil and all that stuff. If I'm using like Fresco or something. And you can actually, you could do, what is it called? Sidecar. And, you could display Animate or Illustrator or anything else you want on your iPad and actually use the Apple Pencil to do your drawing. That will work. But what we're going to do now is some stuff that is very particular to Animate. So I'm going to choose my selection tool. And if I have nothing selected on the screen, I'll be able to hover over the different paths that I have right here and modify them. So just... so is it a cruette? Is that what these things are called? I don't remember. I'm going to choose my sub-selection tool. Of course, sub-selection tool, you can select specific points. So I'm giving my vessel additional form through both of these elements, selection and sub-selection tools. Bottom should be a bit round, and also the top would have a lip as well. Well, I don't know. Maybe I should make this a little... punch it in a little bit, right? Now, the thing that's cool about this, let's go ahead and create this as a... Actually, let's do one more thing here. I'm going to choose my line tool. And I'm going to add some decorative sort of like cuts in the glass, right? Along the bottom here. Give it some extra... little extra something. Yeah, I've object drawing mode on. It's activated. There we go. And maybe something for the top here, right? And then if I choose my selection tool again, deselect everything, I'm able to hover over this and pull it down to give it the appearance of being rounded, right? And this is what I mean, right? When we're talking about how, things are just by default much more malleable inside of Animate than they are in Illustrator. All right. So let's go ahead and select this guy. And we're going to do the same thing. Use quick action, convert to symbol. I'm going to call this vessel and hit OK. So the thing is, because I changed the opacity on this, of course, we can see through it. So let's go ahead and actually add some olive oil in here. If I double click on this and select, I don't know, up to here maybe? Let's make it pretty full. And then I'm going to hold down Shift and click on these objects. So I want to deselect them. Please. There are many things to deselect, apparently. I don't want any of these lines. You know what? I'm doing this weird. I don't even need to do that. So here's a better trick. So if I just click on the fill to select it, right? We can see our fill right here. If I choose one of my brushes, so let's do the classic brush. And for the classic brush, I'm going to oh, it's good. I've got this selected. Joseph, stop. Deselect everything. Classic brush. What we're going to do is select our olive oil. This will be down to like 70, 80, something like that. Hello, Barbara and Janelle. How are you both doing today? Yeah, Animate can absolutely be used for drawing. I love drawing in Animate. It's like super fun. So now that I got my brush going on here, right? Let's adapt the size of the brush, make it nice and fat. And yeah, I'm gonna put olive oil inside the vessel. So here's the deal, right? You have different brush modes here. So we can say paint normal, paint fills only, paint behind, paint selection, paint inside. We have a lot of different things here. I just want to paint my fills. And what we're gonna do is just go in here and fill this up with some olive oil. I don't know, how fill should I make it? I mean, I guess, yeah, I was gonna do it to like right there. I guess that works. Here we go. Now if I pop back out. Yeah, it's still, you know, see-through, but maybe I should make it more green. Easy fix. Double click on the symbol instance, select this portion. And notice now this is a completely separate shape from up here in the neck. Let's make this greener because it doesn't look entirely like olive oil to me. It looks like something else. I'm not sure what. There we go. That's a nice color for olive oil, I guess. Yeah, that says more olive oil to me, right? And let's zoom out. Let's fit in window, actually. So now we've got all of our elements, and we can go through, we can arrange them to however we want. Olives are so strange. Let's make these a little smaller because those olives are gigantic. I know it's a logo, right? So it doesn't have to be right, true to size. However, it would look a little weird having having these giant olives everywhere, you know? Let's maybe do the rectangle tool and just make like a background element here. Double click. Oh, I made a drawing object again. For drawing object, all I need to do is single click. And we're just gonna make this kind of generic. Just picking my colors. And I don't want the variable width in this case. And also, probably should have gone through and, well, that's okay. Yeah. Let's go ahead and arrange, send it back. Ugh. I don't know. We can experiment with a little shadow, and yeah, I don't think that's gonna work out. Let's get rid of that shadow. This is just too dark. Better. And you know what? I mean, this guy... Here, let's select everything. Then deselect these two shapes. There we go. Super easy. I just want to make this darker. Again, let's goof around with the levels of our olive oil here. This is what I mean by being malleable, right? Because it would probably look a little more like that than being straight across with perspective and everything. Yeah, so we've got a stylized little guy here now. We've got elements that we could use to create our logo. That's fine for now. Let's select this. So if I wanted to use this somewhere else, right? I can do a file, export, and you've got all sorts of different ways you can export this thing. Export image, you can choose JPEG, PNG, GIF, all that stuff. You can also, though, choose something like export image legacy. And in here, you can even choose SVG image. .svg, let's save that. And this is gonna bring up an additional export SVG dialog where we can say like, hey, we wanna embed any images or link them. I don't have any bitmap images in here, that's all vector. So perfect. We could choose to flatten groups. I don't have any groups either. Hit OK. And that should save my SVG for me. And then I can even bring this into Illustrator, right? And keep working on it. I can pull it into something like Figma, right? That's kind of where the impetus for this particular demo today came from. Is some of the work I've been doing with LinkedIn Learning and Figma. So that particular course should be out in April, alongside my new book, which you can see, where am I? Which you can see way up top. It's the pink and blue and purple cover. It's Adobe Creative 3D Workflows. So that'll be awesome when that comes out in April. All right. Well, like I said, short stream today. I actually have to jump on something else. It is 12:30 where I am here in Colorado. But I'll be back next week. probably at this time. I think this is my new time for a while. So thanks everyone for joining, everyone who popped in. It's been fun. The replay will be up probably in a few hours. It takes a couple hours to process these things. So, but it's been a fun little stream today. And is that my cat? Oh, that is my cat. My cat is just yelling at me. Okay. I have to tend to the cat, so thank you all.